When we first started this walk, we had no idea what we were doing, but we started out anyway because we thought this is what we're meant to do. This is at Mirrabah where we first started. I'm on the left, Gary, Steve's in the middle, and Jim, our driver, is on the right. This is the first bridge we came to after we left the Bankstown public school, and this was the first hard bit of yakka we had to face. Jim, our driver, had no idea what he was doing when he came on the walk, but he soon found out. Steve on the left and myself on the right. This was very soon after we had started on that first day, and it was a fairly warm day, and we enjoyed that first bit of warmth. We were losing our way a little bit, but Steve kept a close track on his Google Maps, and we seemed to be finding our way in the end. This was the Baptist church where we first came to, and we got a wonderful welcome and a wonderful meal there. This was the annex that we stayed in. This was the first night we had the annex up, and a couple of nights later, a terrific wind picked the annex up and blew it right up into the sky, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was one of our greatest setbacks at the very start of the walk. We couldn't get anyone to fix the annex, but in the end Steve fixed it himself. But then of course we had another thing that happened with Steve, as you'll find out. That was leaving the church as we made our way onto the next the first full day after having a sleep that night. Some of the countryside was beautiful. This was some of the beautiful parts that we went through early on in the walk. This was the first school we came to, and we both were able to speak to the students in the school. We teed this up ahead, and we had to do a bit of juggling to get there by the right time. We just soon discovered how hard it was to get the walk and the timings and the schools all meshing in. The roads were very narrow, and sometimes there was very little room, as you can see here. Some parts we had to actually walk through a gutter on that day, and it was very, very close to the road. This was an area where we stayed one night, and you can see our generator and our caravan there. Generator gave us power, and we had to set up the annex each night, and that changed a little bit as the walk went on. This church was a very welcoming church, and we had our showering here. This happened fairly early on in the walk as well. This caravan park was the first caravan park that we went to, and we didn't have any place in the caravan park, but a man came up and said, "You can have one of my caravans," and he gave us a place to stay when he realised what we were doing, and we saw that as a real amazing provision. Shell Harbour was a place we went past. This was soon after the time when Steve was having trouble with the walk with blisters. Jim was taking some shots around Shell Harbour, and he did a lot of this in the early part of the walk, but not later on. We parked in the middle of the road here, a bit of an unusual place. Some of the places this caravan parked were unbelievable. This is one of them, and we had lunch here. This was after Steve had got his blisters, and you'll see a picture of the blister coming up. We went through the shops in Kiama and collected quite a bit of money, and this lady was one of the shopkeepers who gave willingly to us, and we said we'll put you on our slideshow and on our Facebook, which we did. Caravan was not the most tidy of places. We were always dismantling and putting things apart and putting them back together again, and it got in a bit of a mess at times, but we weren't particularly worried. Main thing is we were still walking. Steve picked up when he was on the walk 4 days into it, and although he couldn't continue walking after that particular day, he stayed with us, and he stayed in the back of the car and was able to be a great help for quite a number of days after that. That was my first day without Steve, and I was struggling on that first day, had a fair few hills on this part of it, and I really missed having my mate with me. The Berry Public School is where we did a stop there for a talk. I was still walking, and Jim and Steve went to this school and gave a good presentation of what we were doing, and they were very interested, and we might have some pictures of that coming up as well. There we are with the students, and Steve did a great job of being able to do this kind of thing even though he couldn't do any walking. This is at Nowra, where we found a place, and we actually had a caravan came and gave us food to eat, and it stocked us all up, and we had people at this place that had been camping there, and they gave us a great welcome as well. Steve had to go to the hospital here, and this was Jim taking photos of the hospital visit. A hat that was given to me by Steve, and Steve couldn't walk anymore, so I got his hat. I think I went through about 5 hats over the whole time. They always got blown off by the trucks, the wind of the trucks, and they'd always get blown off on a bridge or somewhere where I couldn't get over the side to recover it. So I went through quite a few different hats. You can see on the side of the road here that there is a fair bit of room between myself and that white line. On the main highway, that was really good because I had separation from the vehicles. On the back roads, there was very little room, sometimes only about an inch or two. So it was in some ways better walking on the main road than it was on the back roads. Only thing is you had the big trucks and they were constantly zooming past. But that was a good good reminder to me of that. Jim put a fair bit of his time in the early part. This is a manta ray that he took in one of the areas where he was visiting. I did a fair bit of phone calling. Even though I was on the walk, I was still on phone calls. I had a lot of people ring me and ask me how I was going, and when I was in difficulty, they'd often pray for me or help me in some way. And I got a lot of encouragement from being able to still converse, and I had to also keep in touch with Steve and with Jim to let them know where I was at different points. Some of Jim's escapades going up and down some of the local towns. This is the Dalla, and it was really nice seeing all these pelicans there. We enjoyed that. And I still had Steve's hat, and Steve was still with us at this point, still going strong, and it was great having him there, though he was in a fair bit of pain. We set up the annex after Steve had it fixed, and it worked. This was a bit challenging. This was a back road that we could not negotiate. I walked down it and had a look at it, and Jim had a look at it. There's no way we could take the caravan down there. So that was one of the reasons why we had to stick to the main roads, and even though we had some back roads that we wanted to use, we couldn't really use them. We had some interesting spots where we stayed, and this was one of them, and this was by the side of the road, and it was an interesting time there because didn't have all of the luxuries that you had in some other parts where we visited. Looking pretty tired here, that's for sure. This is a place called Moruya where we set up and got a nice caravan park there. We went to the local RSL and had a lovely meal there, and my cousin came up and visited. Hadn't seen her for over 20 years, and she visited and was great to see her and her husband, and they shouted us tea for the night, which was lovely. This is Moruya Public School where Steve had earlier been, and this was a secondary, or no, it was a primary school, that's right. They call them public schools in New South Wales. We call them primary schools in Victoria. We went to the next night to my cousin's place, Christine, and she had invited us there after we had the meal with her the night before at Moruya, and we felt like we were being treated as kings, especially Steve with his sore foot. She looked after him like he was the king. And this is the lovely area too. It was a beautiful area, this whole peninsula. And there's Christine and her husband Vic, and it was really nice seeing Christine again after so many years. These are some of the shots just in some of the areas that we came to after this. Some beautiful, beautiful shots along here. Not everything was as nice as this, but this was some nice, very nice areas. I enjoyed the walk along here because I was going along the beachfront, and it was really nice being able to walk along this kind of a scenic route. One of the bridges we had to negotiate, and setting up the van again that night. Starting off the next day, it was a interesting some of the places that we visited. Jim had a great way of finding things that he liked, and when he would see something, he'd take a snap of it, and this was a beautiful shot, this one. Jim had an unusual way of finding places where he'd park the van. He'd go ahead of me, and he'd park the van up ahead, and this is one of the spots that was very, very nice. It was pretty hard getting to Cobargo, a lot of hilly stuff getting into there, but Cobargo was an interesting town, and the shopkeepers were very, very friendly. We had a great reception at Cobargo, and we stayed behind the shopping area and were made to feel very welcome in that town. We went through the shops and collected a little bit of money, and one of the ones where we didn't think we'd get anything was the local garage, who gave us quite a bit. And these were the shops struggling in their businesses, a lot of them too, which we saw in quite a lot of places where we came through. On the road to Kwama, and this was these were some of the areas that we went through. We stuck with the Princess Highway, and whenever you'd see a sign like that telling you how far you had to go, we'd come from Batemans Bay. It's hard to believe we came 117 kilometres, and then we only had 30 kilometres to Bega. Sometimes you'd see these signs and you think, how am I ever going to do 117 kilometres? This was a bridge where I nearly got wiped out. You can see how narrow it is. A big truck came through and I had to lean right over the bridge to get away from it. And he missed me by not very much. Jim was on the other side taking photos, and he had his heart in his mouth and he was praying as this big truck went past, not these two little cars. And I felt like very well protected, and somebody was praying for me then. This is in Bega, and Jim and I went to one place and Steve went to the other, to this gentleman's house, and we had a really good night there in Bega. This is where Jim and I stayed, and we had a great welcome here as well. We had a good place to park the van, and we enjoyed a lovely meal that night and very great hospitality. Steve went home from Bega on the bus, and this was him on the bus. Well, you can't see him, but we were waving to him as the bus went past, and he rang us on his phone, and he made his way home. He couldn't. His blisters were playing up too much, but we really enjoyed him being with us for so much of the trip, even though he wasn't walking all of it. And that was quite a moment, an emotional moment, as that bus went past. Woolooma General Store, and I think we also visited the church at Woolooma. After Steve left us at Bega, we stayed at Bega with some people there, and so did Steve. And from that point onwards, we didn't have to put the annex up. I was able to sleep in the van on the floor, and I also, at this point, didn't have to carry a backpack, but it did mean that Jim had to keep a close watch on me as I went along, because he wasn't able to go off on trips like he had earlier, and he had to tend to whatever the need was from that point onwards. So this was at the Baptist Church where we stayed the night. Another one of the places where we felt really welcomed and were able to enjoy having power and not have to worry about using our generator. More photos that Jim was taking as he went along. This is the Eden Uniting Church. We stayed behind this church, and the minister came up and saw us, and we had a great welcome there. They had showers actually down on the jetty, and Jim went down and had a shower there, but they were a bit cold. But we stocked up in Eden. We got all sorts of things because we knew we had a big long stretch as we approached the Victorian border, and we had to get all our water and all our food together in Eden before we did the trip. Also, we went through all the shops in Eden and collected a bit of money through the shops. This is one of the places we went through on our way from Eden. The big logging trucks, there were many logging trucks all over the place. This is one of them, and they would thunder past, and we met more of them, of course, when we got into Victoria. This was a rest area we stayed at on the way from Eden. This is actually before we crossed the border. That was quite a nice one, and I was doing Facebook reports. Every night I'd do a Facebook report and get encouragement from the comments that were coming through on the Facebook, and took a bit of doing to do all that and to share photos that we'd taken during the day, but it was well worth it. Welcome to New South Wales. Welcome to Victoria. We wanted to make a bit of a point of crossing the Victorian border. It felt like we were never going to leave New South Wales, and someone took that shot for us. That little vest that I was wearing there, that was something that I didn't always have. You see, I've got a different hat on there. I lost the other hat, that got blown off, but it was really welcome crossing that border. This was the town we came to after we walked through a whole lot of area where it was just nothing but trees and cars. But this was civilization on the other side. These were some people we met from, the lady came from America and the guy, I think, was either from Australia or America, not sure, but they were really interested in what we were doing. They gave us money towards the walk, and one of the many people that we met along the way. Making our way towards Can River, and some of those signs giving you the distances, you often would see these signs, you'd think, oh, are we ever going to get there? This was the Can River Caravan Park. This was the shopping centre, part of the shops that we had at Can River. And another shot of the caravan park there. Only 450 kilometres to go to Melbourne. We're more than halfway here. Kind of felt like it should have been more. We always seem to feel that way. One of the beautiful spots we got here, parked off the side of the road in big forested areas. This was a lovely spot. And this is a walk that Jim went on. He invited me to come on the walk, and I said, I don't want to walk anywhere. I wanted to get ready for the night, and he came back with these beautiful photos of this lovely walk and a bridge that he went across, and yeah, felt a bit envious in a kind of a way. One of the spots we stopped at here, we didn't actually stay there, but we're looking. You always had to look around for places to, and that was, you can just see me there trudging along. This was a very welcome place to arrive at. We came through some very hilly areas, and this was Cabbage Tree, near Cabbage Tree Creek, and the owner of the store gave us a tremendous welcome, and we had a meal there, and he wouldn't charge us for the meal. He said, this is my donation towards what you're doing, and it was left a really good thought in our thinking. So Cabbage Tree General Store, that's the main shop in Cabbage Tree. But I know when I came there, I was absolutely ready for something to eat and something to drink. More of the photos that Jim took along the way as he was driving. And this was arriving at the Orbost Caravan Park, setting up for the night. That was welcome to get to there. Took us a few nights to get to Orbost from Can River. Getting our supplies, taking off soon after for Lake Entrance, knowing we only had 57k to go to Lake's Entrance. And I was getting quite used to some of the roads. This was a kind of a bridge, didn't have much room on the side of this one, but most of the time there was a lot more room than that. But it was where the bridges were, and this was a bridge where you had some of the photos Jim took of me as I walked, I looked like I couldn't walk another step, but that didn't happen very often, but it looks like it there. This was a beautiful spot here, another spot we found by a river. And I remember going into the general store at this place and finding a magpie there. And Jim didn't come into the store, and he found out later about the magpie and went back, and the magpie was still in bed and he couldn't see it the next morning. but I took some photos of the magpie. I haven't got them on this slideshow here, but it was one of the tamest magpies I'd ever met, and it was I loved every bit of that. On the road to Lake Tyers, on the road to Lake Entrance, we came past Lake Tyers, and it was one of the few times where we had rain, and that was me in my rain gear, and very little rain on the whole of the walk. In Lake Entrance itself, some of the shops, and that was a shop where I think we were collected money. We collected a fair bit of money in shops in Lake's Entrance, and we took photos of ones that had helped us. Again, another spot by the side of the road that was really welcome. This was not by the side of the road. This was out of Lake's Entrance on the way to our next destination, and we found a spot up in the forest, and when Jim came to start the car that morning, it wouldn't start. He went up the road, we were way in the middle of nowhere, and he found a place where he knocked on the door. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and a lady came out, and she actually came all the way down with her car to help us get started. We had to do a jump start, and later that day we had to get another battery for the car. Jim's battery had given out, but that was a remarkable answer to prayer. And walking along there, this was fairly near the place where we did get the new battery. Arriving at Nicholson General Store, and we were ready for our lunch on this particular day. When we got to Bankstown, we did go through the whole of the shopping centre. Jenny Bruckle's on the right, and a friend of hers went with us, and the three of us went right through the shopping town and collected probably more in money in a town than any other town, with the three of us all working. That worked very well. We went to Jenny's place and stayed there the night, and this was our meal at the table. That's Bill, Jenny's husband, and a friend of Jenny's as well, and it was really lovely to have a good meal and good fellowship, and that was really enjoyable. Next day we got off to head off to Stratford, and 47k didn't seem too bad a distance to for. On the way we met this man who pulled us over and gave us $200, a good friend of my son Steve, and it was really good to catch up with him and meet him, and he had to chase us along the way and find us. Overnight we stayed at this place here, which is the Billabong General Store, General Store, and a bit of a rundown place, but we were happy to be there, and certainly it wasn't the worst place we went to, that's for sure. 250k to Melbourne, that's why we took that picture. That big truck you can see behind me, many of those had passed us on the way, and you can see the distance between the line and the bitumen there is not real wide, but wide enough. This man stopped us along the way because he wanted to buy Jim's car, wanted to know whether it was for sale. And Jim said, "Oh, well, if I sell my car to you here," he said, "Gary's got to walk all the way home on his own, so probably not a good idea." Anyway, he was asking about what we were doing as well. Arriving in Stratford, and it was really it was really a pretty warm sort of a walk that day, I remember. Heading off from there towards Sale, and when we arrived at Sale, we got a good welcome from the minister of the church there, and he showed us around the back, and we were able to stay the night. We had access to the whole church property. It was wonderful, and we certainly had a variety of places that we stayed in. After we left Sale, we were contacted by Channel 9, and this was the channel that goes over the whole of Gippsland, and we were interviewed, and they took some shots of us on the walk, and we're on TV that night. This was the lady who was doing the interviewing, and they certainly did a great job of their interview. Heading towards Traralgon. Some of the people we met along the way, and you can see there's lots of room for walking on this one, and most people wanted to know what we were doing, and this was two. This was another TV. This was Channel 10. It was actually on the same day as the Channel 9 one, and this was the lady interviewing, and we actually were on 2 TV shows that night, and it resulted in us mission. This Jim was being interviewed here. When we got to Rosedale, we actually went to the caravan park in Rosedale, and we watched ourselves on TV, and Jim was rather taken with it. We were able to get copies of that, and they're actually on the website now, both of the Channel 9 and the Channel 10 news. They were local channels. They weren't being screened from Melbourne, but we put both the copies on the website, and they're available there today. That was the caravan park where we stayed and where we watched ourselves on TV. When we headed off the next day towards Traralgon, it was not a very big distance, 22 kilometres. This was actually grand final day, and this was our sabbatical, and this was the second day we got rain, and it was only early in the morning, and we prayed for the rain to stop, and it did. But the one thing that didn't stop was the wind, enormously strong winds, and it felt like we were walking 44 kilometres that day instead of 22. We didn't do a full day's walk that day because it was our sabbatical, and we met people along the way as well, like this man who were asking us, "What are you doing?" And we handed out lots of cards and money from quite a few as well. This place in Traralgon we stayed at was a lady who saw us on Facebook, and she offered her place for us to stay when we got to Traralgon, and we actually watched the 3/4 of the grand final on that day, and it was really welcome to be at the house and to stay there. The caravan got parked up the back, and Jim slept in that, and I slept in the house. I thought that was more comfortable than staying in the caravan again, and but it was lovely meeting them and catching up with them. They were friends of mine from way back, and I hadn't met them for a long time, the Ronalds. Having a good conversation again after leaving Traralgon, and sensing that we're getting closer and closer. This lady actually saw us on TV, and when her husband passed us along the road, he got home, and we thought he must have recognised us, and he told his wife, and she came running down the drive, and I saw this lady running down. I thought, goodness, she's in a hurry, and she came down with food and money and biscuits and gave them to us. And Jim managed to catch a photo of me as he pulled over on the van and pointed his camera back. And that was one of the most heartwarming things, to see people going out of their way to do things like that. It really was encouraging. Heading towards the power station there, you can see the big tower, the big smoke tower, and that was a fairly narrow piece of road there. So this is the Lawn Power Station, and Jim got that photo of me wanting to point it all out. Stayed at a farm overnight here, had trouble trying to find a place, and we got permission from the owner and he allowed us to stay there. That was an unusual one. We had cows and all sorts of stuff around us. Coming into the town area after we left there, and we met lots of people, as you can see, on the way, pulling us over, talking to us, wondering. And a lot of these also came about from the TV broadcasts. Number of cars that went their horns, honking, waving to us after the TV interviews was quite amazing. And they had all, many of them had seen us on the TV and were giving recognition, which was a most unusual feeling. And many of them had stopped also, were doing the same. This is arriving at Druin, and we stayed that night at the home of, at the church, the Anglican church, right near the home of Kate and Dean Spalding, and that's just outside the church and just near their house. And that was all arranged by our daughter Jenny. This is going through the shops in Druin. We collected money in Druin, and some were generous. This estate agent was particularly generous. I think we collected $100 from that one. Didn't usually get that much from a shop. And the florist was very generous too and very helpful. My daughter Jenny arrived when we were in Druin, and a very good friend of Kate, and she walked with me quite a distance as we walked out from Druin. I spent the day walking with Jenny along the highway. Before she left and went back home, she came all the way over just for that. And this is at Bunyip where we stayed the night. That block there, that toilet block there, had a padlock on it, but the padlock kind of was a bit rusty, and Jim was able to open it up and we were able to get in. We found a magpie inside there, and the magpie wasn't very happy that we were coming into his territory using the toilet block, but he must have forgiven us, I hope. And as we headed off from there the next day, come by a park and places very much familiar, ones that we knew about. This lady here was a lady that we met in Traralgon, who had helped us quite a bit in Traralgon and given us a donation, and she was stopping because she'd seen us and she wanted to make sure that we were okay and everything was going well. Another one of the people who asked us how we were getting. Nana Goon felt like we were really getting close now, and Pakenham felt even closer. To see these signs and to see them there made you feel really, oh, we're nearly there. Here, just outside of Pakenham, we got bogged, unusual bog, because the caravan went down into. You can see the car wheel there, right down deep in the screenings, and I had to walk on ahead on my own, and Jim had to wait for the RACV. He called different ones and finally got the RACV to come, and they towed him out, all free of charge, as part of his membership. That was a bit of a frightening one there. We just pulled over to have some lunch, and that's what happened. When we got to Cockatoo, we of course found a place here. This is the Puffing Billy line. So Puffing Billy had a bit of a visitor that night, and that was our last night where we stayed in the caravan, and it felt rather strange to be so close to home and yet not actually there. Went back to the place just before cockatoo where we stopped, and then had to make up that ground. Not long after that, my son Tim joined me and walked with me. And by the way, I should make a correction. That person I talked about earlier, a friend of Steve, is actually a friend of Tim's who gave us the money. And anyway, Tim walked on the last day with us. Also his daughter Ayla on the left, and his friend Jabe was also there. And we finally arrived home. The last bits to get home seem to be the hardest of all. The hills seem to be the steepest, the hardest and the longest. The closer I get to home, I found it harder to get there than any other place. And so that was just our little welcome home, or welcoming to you that we made it. And another picture there, Maisie the dog, belonging to my son Stephen, was also there to welcome us. And it was a wonderful thing. The next day we went to our final finishing point, which was Parliament House, on the steps of Parliament House, Friday, October the 6th, 2017. And we were met by a number of friends there waiting for us. And also two of the parliamentarians came to meet us out the front as well. There's a picture of Jim and Christine Fife on the left, the parliamentarian, myself in the middle, Neil Angus on the right, and then Steve on the far right. Steve actually came in to meet us with others, and we actually did a walk-in from the Botanical Gardens, and Steve walked in with us. His foot had healed up enough for him to be able to come in, and it was lovely being able to share that special time at the end of the walk with Steve back with us again. And it was lovely to get that welcome, and to see all the friends who'd come to meet us, went out of their way to meet us on that day. That was actually shots here. That was at Stan the Man, who anyone knows Stan the Man, and he was talking with some of the protectors who were there. Chris Fawkes, one of the leaders who comes to our camps and used to come to our Yellingbo camps too, and Gary, who he and his wife came to. And we did a bit of a crossing of the line to show that we actually crossed the line, and Christine was giving us a clap as well. And Christine and Neil talking to us about how the trip had gone. We were in touch with both of their officers on the way by phone to let them know. Jenny Bruckle, whose place we were at earlier, and other friends there who also came out to meet us. That's Sharon Robertson and Graham Lee at the back talking. Stan's wife Louise, and a shot of the Parliament House across from the other side of the road. And as I reflect back now on the whole of the walk, 12 months ago now, as I record this, made me realise what an amazing time it was, and made me realise how important it is to have people backing you and praying for you, and made me realise that there is a God who watches over you. And I didn't get sore feet, didn't get sore limbs. My main thing that I had to struggle with was my metabolism and just my internal workings. And but apart from that, that didn't take long to recover from all of those things. I lost 6 kilograms on the way, and I was never sorry about that. But it's good to look back on it now and realise that it was a wonderful event in my life. We've been able to also use the money to sponsor and to give scholarships to children who wouldn't normally be able to come to any of the Kids of Gold camps.